Hi guys, welcome back. Today we're going to visit with a Canadian YouTuber named Jason Chipman Howlett. Jason is a model up in Canada and he collects toys, in case you're wondering about the toys in the background. He's going to weigh in from a model's perspective on fat shaming. I hope you enjoy.
Barbie did release curvier dolls, and I never really supported them, and I actually never really supported regular Barbie either because of her unusual proportions. Now, I don't really think that Barbie is intentionally or never was intentionally trying to make women become a certain thing or set this unrealistic standard for women. Basically, they were toys and they needed the clothes to look realistic when you put them on this body, and material is thicker in real life on this doll, so you have to make the doll smaller to make the clothes look realistic when they're on the toy. That is what happened. It was not like we have to make women look like this. In fact, this is why I change all of my dolls' bodies to this body, because it's healthy and it's realistic and it's something that children should strive for.
I think he could have put clothes on the Barbie, right? So let's weigh in on this. We all grew up with Barbie and Ken dolls around, not necessarily the boys, but the girls had them enough where the boys saw them, right? And we had He-Man dolls and G.I. Joes and stuff. If you look back at the build of women back in the 70s and the shows that were on, like Charlie's Angels and stuff, they were actually built that way back in the day. We actually used to be a society of people that were relatively skinny. It's just a new phenomena where we got kind of big. So here's what I'd like you to do. Weigh in. Do you think that the dolls, at least back then, were made in an unrealistic way? Let me know what you think. I grew up where girls had Barbie and Ken, and then boys had He-Man and G.I. Joe. And were the bodies of He-Man realistic? No, but there are guys that do look like He-Man characters. Were the bodies of G.I. Joe soldiers realistic? Probably more so, right? There's a lot of people that look like that. If you look at Ken and Barbie, back in the 70s and 80s when Barbie was super duper popular when I was growing up, people were a little bit skinnier. They were actually kind of built like Barbie and Ken. Nowadays, we kind of look like we're a bunch of different shapes and sizes.
I'd say these past couple of years, we've had some really awesome role models for women and body image, counteracting what we see on Instagram for men and women, like the standards. I am a professional fit model. I go to companies that make clothing. I try on the clothes for them. I'm unsatisfied with my body. When my body is being used to measure the standard of clothing, still, I don't like how I look. I'm unsatisfied. I get it. I understand what's going on. I know when I feel sad, I just want to eat 6 pies. Sometimes I do. I think I'm going to stop that. I think I got a new diet that I'm working on. That's going to be in another video. I know that I've made people feel bad because of things I've said. I know I've made people feel bad because of the way I look. But I've never, at least I hope I haven't, shamed anyone purposely, made fun of someone for their weight. I've been made fun of. I remember being in a yoga studio and there were 2 overweight people laughing at me, calling me a Ken doll. And that really hit me in a weird place because I would never get together with some fit people and point at someone who was overweight. That is not something I would do. I know it happens. Again, this goes back to setting a good example. That would be the example that I would set. I would never do that.
Okay, I got to know your reaction. Do we really buy for one moment that Jason had 2 oversized women make fun of him and call him a Ken doll? And is that even making fun of somebody? I think that's more of a compliment. Tell me if you guys agree with me that Jason might be overreacting. Jason, you got to make a better one than that one.
So no one's going to see me do something like that. So hopefully you will never do something like that. I'm really addicted to my value system. I really respect my values. I've cultivated them over many, many years. I like who I am. I like my beliefs. All of this talk that's going on right now about fat shaming, you shouldn't be fat shaming anyone, but there is an epidemic of obesity and just general lack of exercise, poor nutrition. It's not up to the stores to change. It's not up to society to change. It really is up to you. Everything is an excuse, and it's so much easier just to be in our comfort zone and live the only way we've known. The cliches, step out of your comfort zone. You've got to do what scares you. We all know it makes you a better person. We all know an apple is better for you. We know smoking causes cancer. We know we're supposed to get plenty of sleep. And there are plenty of resources out there, and there's plenty of inspiration out there. There's a guy who writes books about addiction. I think his name's Carr. There must be a food one. I've never read any of his books.
I've never ever heard somebody say, "Hey, there's an author named Carr. He does some books. He must have one on addiction. There must be one about food." I've never read any of his stuff. That is the funniest thing ever. But he brings up some really good points. We really do know the things that we're supposed to eat. We really do know the things that we're supposed to stay away from. We really do know we're supposed to be active. So the real question you have to ask yourself is, what happened to my lights? Did they go out on their own and both at the same time? Those are two battery-powered lights. If they went out at the same moment, what are the odds of that? Like 1 in 1 million. I got to check that out on replay. But anyway, you guys know what you're supposed to do. So get your shoes. We're going to be going for a walk.
But I think that they've helped a lot of people. I would definitely look in that if you have an addiction. Right now, I'm really happy with my addictions. Now, my yoga addiction destroyed me physically. My toy addiction is destroying me financially. I've been addicted to health food too. So you can become addicted to a healthy lifestyle. You can refocus your addictions. And I think that's what I've done my whole entire life. I don't want to be an alcoholic. I don't do drugs. Soft drinks and potato chips, I think probably might be the biggest problems. And those are two things that I've never done. I've just always avoided. I mean, potato chips would be easier for me to grab one, and I have eaten chips before. Soda pop would be very, very rare. Ice cream floats. You might have seen me have an ice cream float. That's really the only way I can handle a carbonated beverage.
As far as your addiction to soda and stuff, most people don't say they have an addiction to soda and chips and then remark how they don't really eat soda and chips. I wanted us to get a Canadian's point of view when it came to weight loss, and I thought Jason would be a perfect fit. He's a little different, he's a little weird, and if you go to his YouTube channel, he actually revels in that and likes that he's unique. And I think you'll like his channel too, so I urge you to go check out his videos and subscribe. But you know what I urge you to do even more than that? I urge you to join us in our walking endeavor. In another day, we're going to be going on another 90-day challenge. And if you've been thinking about walking, the weather is starting to get nice all around the country. And it's only going to be that way for a couple months before it gets really cold out. So let's start that walking tradition together. Go get your shoes. Let's go for a walk. Well, good morning, guys. I hope you're having a wonderful start to your day. What did you guys think of the debate? Let me guess, you thought your person won. I watched a little bit of the debate when I got off of my walk yesterday, and then I watched a little bit of the replay a little bit later on. And just like I thought, they pretty much said everything that I thought they would say. I thought that they both acted decently when it came to their mics turning off and giving each other time. Sometimes, especially in the past, you would have a debate. One of the things I dislike when they end up having like multiple people talking at a time, it ends up getting to the point where you can't hear a darn thing. But with these last couple debates where they've been cutting off people's microphones and stuff, you're usually able to hear both sides. But like I said, usually with both sides, they're saying the exact same things, that we always hear them say. So my thought is, hey, whoever wins, congratulations, your side wins, right? But just remember, there's going to be half of us venters that are on the losing side, right? So try to move forward regardless and stay in a positive mood, because you know what? Whoever is the president, we want to be able to outlive their term, don't we? Let's make it a goal that whoever's the next president, right, during this 4-year term, let's make sure that we, let's make sure that we live and we get healthier throughout that. I was looking at some different channels, doing some channel surfing the other day, and I noticed Guy Fieri. I don't know if any of you guys know who Guy Fieri is. He is usually on the cooking channel, but he's gone kind of mainstream. You'll see him all over the news every now and then talking about what he's up to, right? And he's basically a famous cook, or at least I don't really watch Guy Fieri shows, but there's one thing I notice about him that I'm bringing up to you guys, is his hairstyle. Is it just me, or is he the guy that's on the longest running consecutive years of having the same hairstyle? If you guys don't recall Guy Fieri, I guarantee you if you Google him, you'll know him by his hairstyle. He basically has dark hair, but he's been bleaching it blonde, kind of like Marshall Mathers, Eminem, for the past, I feel like it's been the past 20, 25 years that Guy Fieri's been on our TV sets with this bleach blonded hair. And the reason I bring that up is because don't we all find ourselves getting kind of stuck into a character? Maybe the last 10 or 15 years you've been the overweight soccer mom. Maybe for the last 10 or 15 years, I've been this guy that kind of walks a lot, and I still, like Guy Fieri, basically keep my same hairstyle that I've had for the last 20 years. I think a lot of us do that. We get stuck into this character. And if you've been overweight for the last 10 or 15 years, let's be honest, there's probably a piece of you that sometimes feels like you're stuck in this character that you don't really want to be stuck in. Well, here's the thing. Guy Fieri could easily shave off his hair and let it grow in brown or brunette, right? But for whatever reason, he chooses to remain blonde. You too, even though it seems like you're stuck into this body of yours, you too have made a choice to kind of be in that body over the last 10 or 15 years. What you're doing now by joining me on a walk is saying, hey, I'm going to break out of this shell. I don't want to be this character, this overweight soccer mom. I don't want to be this overweight grandpa, that people are just waiting, till I'm 6 feet under. I want to do something about it. And that's what separates you from the rest of the world. So many people just get stuck where they are and never do anything about it. By going on a walk, you're taking those first steps, literally, to changing those things. Now remember, a lot of us have these lofty goals. Hey, I want to lose 50 pounds. I want to lose 100 pounds. A lot of us don't really give credence to the idea that a lot of us are actually going to look much, much better even if we just lose 10 or 15 pounds. So remember, you're not stuck with your Guy Fieri hairstyle. You're not stuck with your dad bod. You're definitely not stuck as a overweight, soccer mom. Your goal is to just keep walking, throw away the scale, don't sit there and stare at it all the time, and then pretty soon, one of these days, you'll notice in the mirror that you're smaller. You'll notice that your clothes fit looser. That's the key. By the way, guys, today is day 89 of our 90-day challenge. Tomorrow we're going to finish up this challenge. If any of you guys have any news with regards to weight that you've lost, wonderful. If you guys don't have any news, that's okay. Because I believe at this point, especially if you've been walking with me for the last 6 months, I feel like it's no longer about a number on the scale. I think we all know there's ups and downs, there's plateaus, right? You can't lose every single pound that's on your body, right? So there is a limit, there is going to be some slowdown. But at the same time, we're going to be embarking on another 90-day challenge. So if you're new and you're hearing my words for the first time, why don't you think about joining us over this next 90 days? For those of you that have been walking with me since the beginning, how does it feel to know that you've walked for basically 6 months straight? What an accomplishment, huh? And for some of us, we've been walking every single day. Now, if for whatever reason you haven't been walking every single day, but you've been walking a consistent 5 or 6 days a week, hell, I don't know about you, but I still think that's hella impressive. Keep that up. Oh my God, guys, I usually tell you every day how the weather's hot, and lately I've been telling you how I feel like the seasons are changing. I'm telling you, during the day, we're still getting up there to a pretty warm temperature, but the mornings lately have just been awesome. And I actually didn't kick my blankets off me while I was sleeping this morning because it actually got a little bit chilly in my house. So I thought that was kind of a cool sign. All right, we're going to be walking upon 2 women that look like they're on their morning walk. I believe that's a mother and daughter. That is one of the beautiful things you can do, ladies. If you have a daughter or son that live close to you, especially if they're a stay-at-home parent, give them a call during the day. See if they want to meet up for a walk. It's going to shock them. They might even say no. But that's where you just got to say, hey, you know what? Every week I'm going to call and see if he or she wants to go on a walk with me. So anyway, back to the Guy Fieri story. The reason I brought up the Guy Fieri story is this guy, when he very first popped on the scene with his bleach blonde hair, looked so young and youthful. He looked like the new face of whatever the heck they were doing on the cooking channel, right? But slowly but surely, he no longer looks like a young guy with blonde tips. He's starting to look kind of like a grandfatherly figure who, instead of gray hair, has blonde tips. Like, it kind of makes you wonder, like, hey, why don't you just let that bad boy go gray? It would still look pretty cool. It's a cool hairstyle that he has, but he's gone from being one of hundreds of guys that have a frosted look or their tips done back in the 90s to all of a sudden, you know, he's like the only person I know in the country that's still doing his hair that way. Every now and then you got to make a little bit of change in your life. So how does that work when it comes to walking? Well, when it comes to walking, it's really a tough decision for some people. Do I really want to waste a half hour or an hour out of my day and out of my time to walk? Because they see time as this entity that they have that's limited, when in reality we have all the time in the world. We just don't realize it. Put your shoes on, take advantage of your job. Your job starts at 7:30. Okay, well, get out the door at 7 and start walking then. You do have time. Quit telling yourself that there's not enough hours in the day. There's always time. The walk must go on. Keep walking. Hey, I wanted to share with you guys something. Some of the YouTubers that I watch include, or at least in the past, included Tim Pool, included Benny Johnson, included, what's his name, Mark Rubin. I forget Rubin's name. I think it's Mark Rubin. But these YouTubers, I don't know if you guys have heard about this, but you might want to Google Tim Pool. I started listening to Tim Pool when the pandemic hit, 4 years ago or so. and all of a sudden we were all working out of our home, I would take a half-hour walk during the middle part of the day, and I would listen to Tim Pool because he would get information about, the latest and greatest things that he had heard when it comes to, the pandemic. Because if you remember, back then they were hearing new stuff every day. There's a bunch of YouTubers that were doing pro-Russian propaganda talking points. And guys, I am guilty of listening to many of these YouTubers that were giving their pro-Russia talking points. Now here's the thing, when they were giving these talking points, I thought they were just the other side of the aisle talking about things from Russia's point of view. I did not look at them as Russian spies. I did not look at them as deceptive people that were giving us bad information, right? But I don't know if you guys heard, but apparently Tim Pool took $5 million over the course of a year to give these random videos about how he basically supported Russia and how Ukraine was this horrible, horrible country. Now, let me tell you the reason why I was starting to think these things. The reason I was starting to think these things is because I was always hearing about these countless numbers of Ukrainians that were losing their lives on the battlefield. And I knew that every time it was like, okay, they're trying to negotiate, you would hear how Boris Johnson, cut off negotiations, or how the Americans cut off the negotiations. So it sounds like this war that's just not ending. The thing that upset me was that we had this never-ending situation where it felt like every month we're sending billions of dollars to the Ukrainian-Russian war, when here at the home front, we're being told by certain shows like Jimmy Dore, who I absolutely adore, the Jimmy Dore Show. If you guys haven't checked it out, check it out. I think you'll like it. But he's telling us that, hey, do you realize that with $82 billion we could cure homelessness? So one of the things that bummed me out about this war was that we had this ability to cure homelessness. Now, keep in mind, in my neighborhood, and I'm sure some of your guys' neighborhoods, we have situations where homeless people are just walking around our houses, when we're sleeping. It's a little unsettling. So that's the angle I was looking at. But here's the thing. I was looking at all these videos and all these talking points, and I was like, hey, here's just a million and more reasons why we need to get out of this war, this, that, and the other. And don't get me wrong, no matter what the reasons are, this war should be ending. I mean, there's nothing positive about these never-ending wars, right? I think we can all agree on that. But I don't think I would have listened to the message that Tim Pool had to say, and Benny Johnson had to say, and the Rubin Report had to say. I don't think I would have taken anything from those messages if I knew that they were getting paid $100,000 per show, to the tune of $5.2 million over the course of a year. This is why I'm not a huge fan of doctors that are pro-Wegovy and pro-Manjaro. A lot of times when you do the homework on those doctors that are singing the praise of these medicines, a lot of times you'll find out, oh wow, who would have guessed, they're on the payroll. If you're on the payroll of a medication, of course you're going to sing its praises. Of course you're going to downplay its negative side effects, right? So whenever you hear doctors say, hey, this Manjaro is a real game changer, maybe it is, but at the same time, if things go wrong in the future, you're going to hear about all these doctors that tried to warn everybody. Yet I'm not really hearing too many doctors that are trying to warn everybody. I do hear them though. So let's bring this back to Tim Pool and company. Guys, these are famous YouTubers that were saying so much stuff on the daily that I was actually taking in and absorbing and consuming. And as I was consuming their content, it was making me, look more and more like I was feeling like, hey, maybe this Ukraine is not the best partner to have. And there were other things that bothered me. Let's be honest. Did any of you guys hear how Zelensky's wife was living like a ritzy celebrity. His wife was Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, right? The king of Ukraine. His wife, they show her and she's like living it up like a millionaire. I don't like hearing those stories. While your fellow countrymen are losing their lives, you're living like a movie star, right? This life of luxury. I don't like hearing those stories. Those stories are very much true. But the reality is these guys were basically giving propaganda talking points straight from Russia themselves. They were basically side branches of this RT News, which I guess is what Russia Today News. So, why do I bring that up? Well, because ultimately, because I've made a choice over the last handful of years to watch less and less of the traditional media outlets and to watch more and more YouTubers, because I felt like through YouTubers we were getting the honest truth, you kind of start to realize, well, heck, if you're relying on YouTubers and they're telling you that they are independent, and then in reality they're actually parroting talking points from Russia, well, then they're not so independent, are they? So Tim Pool, you made $5 million, and here's the controversy with Tim Pool. I really think if you guys have not heard about this, you should watch a couple of these videos on YouTube that involve Tim Pool, P-O-O-L, Tim Pool. He basically took $5 million. It was from a Russian entity. Now other YouTubers are getting on him saying, okay, you didn't know, are you going to give the $5 million back? And that's where good old greed and tough decisions have to be made. Somebody gives you $5 million. What's human tendency? Human tendency is, hey, I'm going to make an upgrade with this raise I got. So all of a sudden, Tim Pool starts building a skate park. All of a sudden, Tim Pool probably buys himself a new car. I don't know if he did, but he probably did, right? All of a sudden, you start to live in the lap of luxury because of this $5 million. Pretty soon, whatever your handlers want you to parrot, whatever they want you to say, pretty soon you're saying it. And one of the videos that people are sharing of Tim's is one where he's literally saying the enemy of the world and the enemy of the USA is the Ukraine. And he said it in such a matter-of-fact, powerful way that it's almost like you could picture Vladimir Putin saying it himself. So here's where I'm different than most people. I'm willing to say that, hey, I might have been tricked by Russia propaganda. Not necessarily through Russia, but through YouTubers that I thought were independent and giving me their side of the story. And this is where it gets bigger than just Tim Pool. This is where you have to say, hey, Tucker Carlson's been kind of giving this pro-Russia thing too. That kind of fed into me. I consider myself to be a Tucker Carlson fan. We also have situations where people like Scott Ritter are constantly kind of singing the praises of the Russian military and the Russian side of the story. Same with Jimmy Dore. And it just makes you wonder, we've already opened Pandora's box. We found out about these handful of influencers. But are we going to find out that this affects Tucker Carlson? Are we going to find out that it affects Joe Rogan? That it affects Jimmy Dore? There's so many more things that can come of this, because all these people have been kind of saying the same things. Was only Tim Pool and the Rubin Report and Benny Johnson, were they the only ones that were taking money? Who knows? I doubt it. But could you imagine as a YouTuber, you're making $5 million a year? And apparently what makes the Tim Pool situation so weird is it's not like he's making $1 million or 1 million views per video. A lot of his videos they were showing, they only have 15 or 25,000 views. So whenever somebody has that small amount of views, and don't get me wrong, that's a huge amount of views to someone like me, but in the grand scheme of life, that's a small amount of eyeballs on his videos, right? For somebody to make $100,000 per video, their job was to do, I believe, 3 or 4 videos a week, And it ended up working out to the point where they're making 5.2 million bucks per year. That is crazy good money. Where Tim kind of went wrong is, instead of kind of saying, yeah, I got tricked, I'm going to give back the money, he hasn't mentioned giving back the money at all, right? And it looks like he really went off the deep end when it came to these points that he was making. They were literally showing on one video these propaganda points that were coming out of people talking strictly from Russia. And all of a sudden they show Tim and he's talking about these exact same points, and it just kind of looks awful. So your boy Jesse is telling you, I got kind of fooled by this. I'm watching these YouTubers thinking they're independent, but can you really be independent if you're taking 5 million bucks a year from somebody to tell people what they want you to say? So I think Tim Pool might have really hurt himself going forward. Will he have to go to jail or prison for this situation? I don't know, but people keep talking about he's going to have to give back the money. And that's where trouble lies. What happens if someone gives you 5 million bucks? What happens if you spend 3 or 4 of the 5 million? You're thinking you're doing good because you still have a couple million saved up. But what if you did spend it all? You know, I think Tim Pool might have really hurt his YouTube career. Will he bounce back from it? Are there some fans that won't care? Hopefully, probably, right? I don't want him to lose his career. I don't want him to necessarily go to prison, especially if he was fooled. But my goodness, if someone's willing to pay you something that sounds too good to be true, you owe it to yourself to do your homework and find out if it's worth taking their money. And that's where the YouTubers were making fun of it. Apparently, the whole situation looked shady, and these people that are saying, hey, we were fooled, we're the victims here, we didn't mean to be saying these talking points, we thought we were working with an eccentric billionaire, right? There is no such thing as an eccentric billionaire that you're working with. It's something shady. They should have done their homework. They should have known better. They ended up basically becoming not Russian spies, but they basically became Russia propagandists. And I was guilty of taking in everything they had to say. Here's the thing, even though something's propaganda and a talking point of another country, you know, who knows? Maybe there were still some kernels of truth there. But now that we know that all of our favorite YouTubers were just speaking, you know, straight from Russia's mouth, it's really hard to kind of want to listen to what they have to say in the future when it comes to this subject or topic. So I'm really interested to see if all these YouTubers survive this and still flourish going forward. I have a feeling they will, because again, a lot of their viewers are very loyal and stuff. But I'm going to constantly look at them and know that when it comes to doing the right thing or taking the money, they're going to take the money. That's where it's a challenging thing. Jesse, what do you do if somebody offers you 5 million? Guys, 5 million might be such a crazy number that it makes people do crazy things. So I would love to tell you, hey, I would turn down that money. But the reality is, if they were fooled, they probably would have fooled me too, you know? But if it was a too good to be true situation, I would have done a little bit more homework than these guys did. So the overall moral of the story is, keep walking. Because sometimes you're right in life and you need a walk so you can tell yourself, hey, I know I've got my talking points together. I know I've got my facts together. I'm on the good side here. And sometimes we walk because we realize, oh my God, I'm the villain. I've been on the bad guy's side here. I've been on team horrible. Oh my God, I got to change my ways. And sometimes you can just sit back and say, you know what? I'm going to see how this plays out. Just because these guys said talking points that were straight from the lips of Putin doesn't necessarily mean that everything that they've been saying is wrong. This war still needs to end. Whenever people are losing their lives, we can't say, hey, it's a smashing success. People are still losing their lives. So again, I'm going to move forward and I'm going to start taking information that YouTubers give me with a grain of salt. And I would recommend that you do your homework and take their information with a grain of salt too. But one thing I wouldn't take with a grain of salt is my advice to you, because you know deep in your heart it's true. You need to be walking more, you need to drink more water, and you need to avoid sugar. And if you're new, you need to join us in the next day or two when we start our next 90-day challenge. So have a beautiful, wonderful day. I want you to hit every single goal, and I want you to be better today than you were yesterday, and I want you to make plans to be better tomorrow than we are right now. Have a beautiful one. I'll see you later.